The heart of Washington, D.C. became the scene of a horrific crime on a recent Wednesday night. The violence erupted near the Capitol Jewish Museum, a significant cultural institution. The attack shattered the evening calm, sending shockwaves through the city and far beyond. The victims were two Israeli embassy staff members, Yaronlischinsky and Sarah Milgram. They were reportedly on the verge of getting engaged. The museum became an unwitting backdrop to an act of targeted hatred. Authorities quickly identified a sole suspect in the double homicide. He was named as Elias Rodriguez, a 30-year-old man. Rodriguez reportedly hailed from Chicago, Illinois. His reasons for being in Washington, D.C., and specifically near the Capitol Jewish Museum that night, became a central focus of the ensuing investigation. Law enforcement began to piece together his background, seeking to understand the path that led him to commit such a violent act. During the act of violence and its immediate aftermath, Rodriguez's alleged motives began to surface. Eyewitness accounts and official reports indicate that his actions were not random. He reportedly targeted his victims with a chilling purpose. The shooting itself was brutal and direct, leaving little doubt about his intent to kill. The choice of victims, two Israeli embassy staffers, immediately suggested a political or ideological motivation. While being taken into custody, he was heard chanting, "Free, free Palestine." An eyewitness also reported that Rodriguez claimed he did it for Gaza. These statements provided a direct link between the murders and the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The horror of the event was captured through the eyes of those who were present. John Ellison, a visitor from Chicago, happened to be near the Capitol Jewish Museum. He witnessed the shooting unfold. His account provided crucial initial details about the sequence of events. Ellison described the terrifying moments as the shots rang out, shattering the night's quiet. Another key eyewitness was Jojo Drake Kalin. Kalin was an organizer for the annual Young Diplomats reception, an event being held at the museum. Remarkably, Kalin encountered Elias Rodriguez before the shooting. Kalin reportedly offered Rodriguez water, a simple act of kindness. At that point, Rodriguez gave no indication of his violent intentions. This interaction highlights the deceptive normalcy that can precede horrific acts. According to reports, he pretended to be a witness. He allegedly remained at the scene, blending in, and waited for police for over 10 minutes. The contrast between Rodriguez's initial demeanor and his later declarations is stark. The immediate aftermath of the shooting saw a swift response from museum security personnel. Elias Rodriguez was reportedly detained by the security team at the Capitol Jewish Museum shortly after the incident. Their quick actions were crucial in preventing his escape and ensuring he was apprehended promptly. Once detained, Rodriguez reportedly cooperated to some extent with authorities on one key matter. He is said to have identified the location where he had discarded the weapon used in the attack. The area surrounding the Capitol Jewish Museum was quickly cordoned off by law enforcement. The initial law enforcement presence was significant, reflecting the gravity of the crime, especially given the identities of the victims as diplomatic staff. The brutal killings quickly drew condemnation from the highest levels of the United States government. President Donald Trump issued a strong statement addressing the tragedy. He asserted that anti-Semitism, hatred, and radicalism have no place in the USA. Attorney General Pam Bondi also spoke out forcefully against the attack. She revealed that she had spoken with President Trump multiple times regarding the incident. Bondi emphasized the commitment of federal law enforcement agencies to support the local investigation. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, whose department is responsible for diplomatic relations and the security of foreign missions, expressed his deep concern and outrage. Similarly, U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson also condemned the attack. The collective response from U.S. leadership aimed to convey several messages. Firstly, profound sympathy for the victims and their families, as well as for the nation of Israel. Secondly, a resolute stance against anti-Semitism and all forms of ideologically motivated violence. Thirdly, a commitment to a thorough investigation and to bringing the perpetrator to justice. The swift and unequivocal condemnations were intended to reassure both the American public and international partners. The U.S. government would not tolerate such heinous crimes. The murders resonated deeply within Israel, prompting strong reactions from its political leadership. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar was among the first to publicly address the tragedy. He explicitly linked the attack in Washington, D.C. to what he described as a global wave of anti-Semitic incitement. Sa'ar suggested that the hostile environment created by such incitement contributes to violent acts against Israelis and Jews worldwide. Echoing these sentiments, Israel's National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, also blamed global anti-Semitic incitement for the attack. He specifically referenced the period following the October 7, 2023 attacks by Hamas. Ben-Gvir's comments pointed to a belief within parts of the Israeli government that international discourse and actions, or inactions, were creating a permissive atmosphere for such violence. Amichai Chikli, Israel's diaspora minister, accused the leaders of the United Kingdom, France, and Canada of emboldening terror forces. Beyond Israel, the European Union's Foreign Affairs Chief, Kaja Kallas, also responded to the news. She expressed her shock and sadness at the killings and unequivocally condemned antisemitism. The tragic shooting in Washington, D.C. did not occur in a vacuum. It unfolded against a backdrop of a documented global rise in anti-Semitic incidents. Jewish communities in numerous countries have reported increased harassment, vandalism, and physical assaults. This alarming trend has created a pervasive climate of fear and insecurity for many. Human rights organizations and governmental bodies have tracked this surge, noting its intensity and widespread nature. The attack on the Israeli embassy staff, with the suspects' reported anti-Semitic and anti-Israel declarations, appeared to be a violent manifestation of this disturbing pattern. Simultaneously, the world has witnessed a significant number of pro-Palestinian protests. These demonstrations, often large and passionate, have taken place in cities across the globe, including in the United States. While many participants advocate for Palestinian rights and an end to conflict through peaceful means, some protests have included rhetoric and imagery that has been criticized as anti-Semitic or as inciting hatred against Israelis. The complex interplay between legitimate political protest and the rise of anti-Semitism is a contentious and highly sensitive issue. The attack in D.C. has reportedly heightened fears among Israelis about traveling or living abroad. The sense that they could be targeted simply because of their nationality or perceived association with Israeli government policies is a heavy burden. The American Jewish Committee, AJC, had organized the event being held at the Capitol Jewish Museum on the night of the attack. In a statement, the organization vehemently condemned the violence. In the immediate wake of the deadly assault, a primary concern was the security of other Israeli diplomatic missions. As a direct response to the attack in Washington, D.C., security measures were slated to be increased at Israeli embassies and consulates worldwide. This is a standard protocol following any significant security incident involving diplomatic personnel or facilities. The aim is to deter potential copycat attacks and to reassure staff of their safety. Locally, the security response around the Capitol Jewish Museum was swift and comprehensive. The entire block was cordoned off for an extended period, allowing investigators to meticulously process the crime scene. The fact that the museum, a cultural and community hub, became the site of such violence also prompted internal reviews of its own security protocols. Ensuring the safety of visitors and staff at such institutions is paramount, especially in a climate of heightened threat levels. The attack on Yaronlischinsky and Sarah Milgram has triggered a broader reevaluation of diplomatic security arrangements within the United States. The murder of Yaronlischinsky and Sarah Milgram has sent profound shockwaves through the Israeli diplomatic community. These were not just abstract casualties of a distant conflict. They were colleagues, friends, and for some, like family. The loss of two young individuals dedicated to serving their country is a deep blow. Embassies and consulates around the world, particularly those representing Israel, are likely experiencing a period of mourning and heightened anxiety. Beyond the Israeli diplomatic corps, this event has a chilling effect on diplomatic staff from all nations. Diplomats, by the nature of their work, often operate in foreign lands where they can become symbols of their home country's policies. The DC shooting underscores their inherent vulnerability, even in nations considered relatively safe. This incident will inevitably lead to discussions within diplomatic circles globally about risk assessment and personal security. The tragedy in Washington contributes to a larger, unsettling narrative of growing global insecurity and the increasing prevalence of targeted violence. The memory of this tragedy will serve as a somber call to action for governments, communities, and individuals to work towards a world where diplomacy is not met with deadly force and where hatred does not claim innocent lives.